Welcome back to that rugby podcast. We're back again for 2025, a break over Christmas, New Year's.
Mm,
Hughesy, obviously, you had some big life changes over Christmas and New Year's.
yeah, I did. Yeah, got engaged. So sorry to all of our single fans out there who were looking
Line
to
you up.
get with a podcast co-host. Unfortunately, I'm off the market.
Yeah, congratulations, mate. Obviously,
Yeah,
yeah,
thank you.
I think everyone, all of our listeners are going to be surprised you say yes, but like you are a Wallabies
No,
fans and you have been let down
yeah,
before, so I'm just glad that you didn't get let down again.
I know. Yeah,
And
Look,
2025 started off all right.
started out the year with one ring, so already got that in the bag. No matter what happens from here, it's a good year.
Yeah, love that. Today is obviously our welcome back, our refresher. We're back into the 2025 gist of things. So I thought let's go through what we think is going to happen in 2025. Let's make
Mm,
some early predictions on the year ahead. Let's see who we think are going to come out on top, players that we think will stand out, and none other than kicking it off with what we have right around the corner, which is more
yeah,
important to us than the Six Nations, but it's probably not such a big tournament, but Super Rugby. Already had some preseason games.
yeah,
Your Waratahs did away with a Pacifica team early, and I think they're playing the Brumbies or someone like that this
yes,
weekend. And I know the Hurricanes are playing the Chiefs, and there's a whole lot of preseason games getting underway. But I kind of thought let's start with the big hit, which is who's going to win it this year.
yeah,
Now, the obviously storyline is no Melbourne team. So a lesser
hmm
Australian team, 16 playoff. So, it's going to probably be the most competitive season we've had in a long time, in my opinion.
yeah,
Husey, where do you see the season going? You've obviously had some great recruitment. Taniela Tupou, Rob
yes.
Leota, Callaway is another one to add to that list. So, um,
Suoliti,
yeah,
can't forget that one.
cannot forget him and his early days in rugby union. But who do you think takes it out? And let's, just because I know you're going to tell me anyway, where do you think your Waratahs end up?
Yeah, so look, I think the Waratahs have a real bounce back year. Dan McKellar, great coach, massive recruitment. Waratahs definitely benefited the most from the Melbourne Rebels folding. And look, it's the added depth was necessary because we saw what happened last year with the injuries. The Waratahs last year, perhaps the most unfortunate season of Super Rugby of all time, with the decimation of the forward pack with the injuries. So a lot of those players coming back from injury. Um, you know, and plus the recruitment of new front row stock should, rugby's won in the front row. Like we know, this is known. We know this, right? I speak as a former front row myself. Rugby is won in the front row, and so, um, yeah, not only boosting depth but getting back players who are injured, I think will be huge for the Waratahs this year. Dan McKellar knows how to beat New Zealand teams, particularly your Hurricanes. When he was with the Brumbies, they always seem to have the Hurricanes
Yes.
number, right?
Mm.
So I think the Waratahs will definitely finish above the Hurricanes this year. I think you could go ahead and lock that in, or they'll at least beat the Hurricanes this year. Uh, I think they'll do fairly well. I think they'll finish high up the table because they'll benefit from playing other Australian teams more often than they play New Zealand teams. In terms of who wins it, look, uh, obviously very tough call at the moment because we haven't seen any of these teams really play, and we don't really have a sense of where they're going. And as a result of that, I'm just going to say the Waratahs are going to win it because why not? At this stage, any kind of prediction is pissing in the wind. So may as well say my Waratahs now and plant my flag early.
Did you end up finishing last year?
Yes,
So you going from last to first. I love that confidence.
absolutely,
Absolutely love that confidence from you,
absolutely.
Husey.
It's
Um,
the it's the it's just it's the inject it's a totally different team, right? It's you've got you look at that back line as well with Jorgensen on the wing, Sully at fullback, right? Feketi in the centers, uh, and it should be Tane Edmed steering the ship for the Tars as well. Pretty solid backline there, and then you look at the forward pack as well. It's a totally revamped team, and with McKellar at the helm, I really like where the Waratahs are headed.
yeah, I mean, obviously you're speaking highly of the Waratahs, but what I think I fear most at the moment is the Australian teams. Like, as a New Zealand team supporter, Hurricanes are my team. I go, those Australian teams, all of them, on paper, look really strong. Like,
Yeah.
you look at the Force and what they keep, the signings they keep making, Darcy Swain going across you. They've already built a really decent base, and some players like Carlos Tizano is going to just have grown from his experience. We look at
Yeah.
that, the Australian captain, the incumbent captain, which was Liam Wright at the Reds, then the one that ended up as captain in Harry Wilson, to put with arguably the best player for the Wallabies last year and Fraser McWright in that back row
Yeah.
of Australia under Les Kiss, you go, shit. And then you've got a Brumbies team that's always good. Like, they always seem to deliver. So I'm like, you talk about those four teams as all potential to get into the top six. Then we go over to the New Zealand side of things. The Blues, defending champions, welcome back Beauden Barrett, two-time Player of the Year Beauden Barrett, to probably steer the ship at 10. They look at Chiefs with Damien McKenzie, who has, now been the pivot for the All Blacks in enough big games to be able to step up for the Chiefs. You look at my Hurricanes, a couple of good signings, close to making it all the way to the grand final, except for blowing the semi-final. Yes, big pieces go missing. We look at TJ Perenara, we look at Geordie Barrett, who's obviously in Leinster at the moment, and then the big pieces of obviously Ardie Savia. I wear the Moana Pacifica jersey in spirit of that maybe one day that the decision will be reversed and that he will end up in a Hurricanes jersey again. But then you start to put that together, and I look at the Moana Pacifica side. No walkover either. Both Savia brothers. They signed 4 or 5 of the Wellington Lions players who took out the competition in the NPC. So I just sit there and I go, shit, there's a lot of talented teams. I look at the Highlanders as probably the weak link, but on their day, the Highlanders, that Southern spirit, seem to fucking pick up a win. So I go, I don't think you go into this competition where you go, any game's guaranteed to win. I think there's going to be so many teams beating other teams that it's going to be so tight. I would consider myself, if I look back at the end of the year and I haven't picked the Blues, who return Beauden Barrett to the 10 jersey, have so many options in that back line, have an incredibly strong 4-pack, I would be stupid. Another season under the coach, I just go, I don't see a team currently on paper being better than them. Obviously, injuries can change that. I'm interested to see what happens with the Crusaders. Like, we don't know there.
Yeah,
but
do they bounce back? Yeah.
Exactly. But in my opinion, I can't go past the Blues. I just go, the Blues are the team to beat.
100%. Look, you'd have to be a delusional Waratahs fan to not be picking the Blues, Luckily, that's what I am. It's going to be a great competition this year. Fiji is going to keep getting stronger. Moana Pacifica were even improved year on year, right? They were challenging for a final spot up until the final week. Like, that's huge for Moana Pacifica. And it's unfortunate that the Rebels had to go to sort of achieve this, but we'll see. Look, it wouldn't have been the move that I would have liked to have seen, but I always root for Super Rugby success. So hopefully we're in for a great season, and especially for Australian rugby, as the Waratahs go, so does Rugby Australia go. So Waratahs need to have a big season.
Totally. Next up in the tournament that kicks off this weekend, of this weekend or next weekend, I'm sure it's this weekend. Maybe it's next weekend.
It is this weekend.
This weekend is the Six Nations. So some really interesting, I guess, discussion and points coming out of this. You've got two, in consideration, the two best teams, which are your Ireland and France. You've got your two ready and waiting, which are Scotland and England, and then you've got your two can beat anyone on their day except of your Wales, Italy and Wales. So I go, it's a really interesting comp. The big thing I want to start off with is Ireland, because Ireland is obviously missing their coach, Farrell Senior, because he is setting up and plotting a great Lions cash and grab, or whatever Eddie Jones says, is to come down to your territory and take that series. So he's not there. So Ireland, you go, obviously the added topic of Geordie Barrett being involved in Leinster setup and how that will affect the Irish setup, because he's been playing, so some other players haven't been playing, where they play everyone. France are always in are better with themselves, it seems like. So
Yeah.
I look at it and I go, look, my heart goes, if there was ever a time, if there was ever a time in the Six Nations capacity, they've obviously won it in the Five Nations capacity, it's Scotland's time. It's
Mm.
Scotland's time to do it. You've got arguably one of the best players, if not in his time, can be the best player in Finn Russell. You go, this could be their moment to take it out. A massive fear of mine is starting to grow and it's starting to bubble and it's scaring the living shit out of me. England are looking good.
That's well,
Borthwick's on his journey. I even look at some of their players coming through. The young Pollock from Northampton who came into the squad. He's not going to be involved in the Six Nations, I believe. But I go, what is actually scaring me is I don't think they win the Six Nations, but I think they're growing, and I think if Borthwick can do enough to show, it really fears me come 2027 World Cup time that they could have a
yeah,
fucking contender. And what I hope, and it's a terrible hope to have upon a team, but I hope they capitulate because I kind of need Borthwick to get out of there. And you can
yeah.
rate him, you can not rate him, but I need Borthwick out because if Borthwick's out, then they have to restart, and if they keep restarting, they'll fuck it. So I'm a bit nervous with that. If I'm to pick a team now, I think my heart says Scotland. My head says France. I think with Dupont back, I think they've got the easiest schedule of home games. So if I'm going to lock in a pick, because I went with my head and had to pick the fucking Blues in Super Rugby, I'm going to go with my heart here, and I'm going to go Scotland to win the Six Nations for the first time in their history. Six Nations, they've won five, but Six Nations.
Well, I don't. I have to disagree. I don't think France have the easiest home schedule because they play Wales and Scotland at home, and that's it. The other three games
Oh,
they're away for us, particularly
ooh,
Ireland.
yeah.
So that's the big one there. I think I think England's my sneaky pick for this because, as you mentioned, Ireland's in a bit of a shaky spot at the moment. France or something always seems to go wrong, but look, England play France at home. They play Scotland at home, and playing Scotland at home for them is a big one because they always seem to shit the bed in Murrayfield, right? They play Italy at home much. They'll play Wales in Wales, and then the big one, the opening round, it'll be all determined from this weekend. I think is they play Ireland in Ireland this Sunday for us Aussies. I think Saturday evening for you folks over in the Northern Hemisphere, um, the British Isles. I think if England win that game, they win the Six Nations.
Yuck. Did that
Mm.
feel just terrible coming out of your mouth? Because
It did. I mean,
it hurt my
even if
ears.
they don't, even if they, yeah, because I think other than that, Ireland's got a decent schedule because they play France at home, right? Um, and so Ireland have only got the two home games, um, England and uh, England and France, which are which are arguably their two most difficult opponents, right? So if Ireland win this one, it'll be Ireland. So I think the winner of this game, Ireland or England, will determine who wins the Six Nations this year.
Yeah, I like that, and I can see that happening. I just
Mm,
yeah, I think the French with Dupont back, there's enough talent in that team. I look at the way the French teams are running European rugby at the moment, and I go, it's one of those ones where I see it like the Blues, like it's hard to go past them, but. I mean,
yeah,
it's another it's going to be a competitive Six Nations at least. And
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
but I'll stick with my heart in Scotland. The Rugby Championship, about 200 odd days away, but we thought, you know what, let's pick
Mm.
that as well. Why not have a go at that? Um, would you like to start off with your prediction, my friend?
Look for my mind, it's a tough one, obviously, because we are so far away. Um, and I, my heart's telling me to be full bias. My uh, my head though is telling me likely Australia. The focus this year is the British and Irish Lions tour. So I think the rugby championship is very much a secondary consideration this year. Um, yeah, so because the Lions tour happens first, right?
Correct. The Lions do
June,
yes, happens
yeah,
in
June and August. Yeah,
August.
June
Yeah.
to August. Yeah. Um,
So yeah, the Lions
Yeah,
tour ends August 2nd is the last game against British and Irish Lions, and your first game against South Africa is in the Rugby Championship is August 16th. So you got 2 weeks
yeah.
after that.
And look, I think they'll be pretty beaten up after that tour. Like it's going to be a tough tour. Not saying that the result won't go Australia's way, but it's going to be tough. Um, so then there's the balance of what did they learn against the British and Irish Lions? Like coming into the Rugby Championship, having played a couple games, is it's a real advantage in a way because you've had more time to get cohesive a team. You've played together in live game environments and games that matter for a lot of potentially new players or players that are still developing under Schmidt's system. Um, versus potential injuries and just the general fatigue. Um, I don't think Australia finished bottom again, but I don't think they win. I think as I said, their focus will be very much on the British and Irish Lions. Um, so yeah, they'll be right around the 2-3 mark, very much in that mark, and it'll probably end up coming down to bonus points. Um, and yeah, and then winners, you know, um, it's the New Zealand South African series is in New Zealand this year, right?
Correct.
I think New Zealand will win, South Africa second, Australia third, Argentina four. And I think Australia and South Africa will be pretty close in that 2-3. It'll depend on um, bonus points, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Look, it's again, it's going to be another competitive one, and how the British and Irish Lions affects your team is going to be, I guess, the talking point. You've got to think about it. Hey, that's 2 weeks turnaround. As you said, it's tough. It's obviously a tough series. It's always going to be a tough series. You're never going to get an easy series against British Irish Lions.
Yeah.
How that affects you? Is it going to prep you before you go straight on tour to South Africa? Again, it would be, I believe, would be the most historic year in Wallabies history for a long time if you somehow managed to take out British Irish Lions and the Rugby Championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you take those two things, I'm obviously not mentioning the Bledisloe Cup because we're not dreaming, if you know what I mean. Like, we've got to be realistic. Like, you have won the Rugby Championship before. You haven't ever,
Yeah.
I can't even remember the last time that you won the Bledisloe. So I go, it would be historic for you to do those two things. It would be historic, say you win the British Irish Lions, let's say it's 2-1, to then go to South Africa and even pick up 1-1. I would think would be massive. South Africa, I guess the thing you could get them on is a bit of rust because their home series this year, it looks like Italy, Georgia. And they play July 19th and then August 16th. So they have a month off and they've only played a team like Georgia or Italy. And that's not to put those two teams down, but it's not, an Irish series that they had or even an English series or anything like that. It's, a tier 2 team-ish. So I go, does that play into the calculations? Can South Africa get out of the rust, Australia coming and flying? Imagine if you 3-0 the British and Irish Lions and then go to South Africa and pick up 1-1 there. You'll be on a high going to the Rugby Championship again. So, there's no doubt that can happen. But there's not enough of me to say that's a percentage of happen. I think if you put all you've got, which you will do, into the British and Irish Lions, it's going to be a tough ask to even win one game in South Africa. So I go South Africa 2-0 you there probably. Let's be honest, we're at least 1-1 in it between us, if not 2-0, because you're not winning the Bledisloe. So I'm like, that's all right. We'll split one game there. We'll take one. As you said, South Africa have to come to New Zealand. This is where the series is decided. Can South Africa go to New Zealand and win a game? The current state that they're in, I think they can. I really do. And it scares me. Like, I am nervous. The current state that we're in, I also think we can win those two games. So I'm like 50-50 here. I'm like, I feel like we win those two games. If I was a betting man now, I'd be betting that we win those two games. Argentina's a dark horse. Because fuck me if you know that what's going to happen in Argentina. I think they've got one of the best rugby players in the world who currently plays for Toulouse, Chocobares, is their inside centre, was fantastic. They had Albinol step up last year. I go, this team is starting to create an identity and have some really skillful players, and they could win a game against everyone again. Like, we've got to go there and play them twice. You've got the luxury of them coming to you. Again, I think you may 2-0 them. I don't know if we 2-0 them in their hometown. I don't know if South Africa splits those games again. So that's a dark horse. So if I'm a betting man now, I'm going New Zealand 1, South Africa 2, Argentina 3, Australia 4. And the principle is that British and Irish Lions is just going to take too much from the Wallabies this year. And if you win that series, coming fourth in the Rugby Championship, it don't fucking matter. You know what I mean? Like, if you win a British and Irish Lions series, you won't be that bothered if it's a fourth place finish. Say you take a game from everyone, if it's a similar way you kind of did it this year, I think the Australian rugby public and people will be understanding because you've won a British and Irish Lions series.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about that British and Irish Lions series, though. Obviously, I think that's the pinnacle of this year. And even I'm talking as a New Zealander, and I got nothing involved. I hope both teams beat each other the hell out of each other. But this is a pinnacle year for you. Obviously, Joe Schmidt's team, the Wallabies. Look, I love that this is where we're at. You know that this is the moment. 4 years ago, 2021. COVID kind of affected the South Africans' opportunity. 2017, I look back on that fondly in the split series where we drew 1-1 with the British and Irish Lions in New Zealand. It's never easy to beat them. This is going to be a superstar team with currently one of the superstar coaches in world rugby getting his first opportunity to take this team into it. He'll have them prepped, he'll have them ready. But there's so many storylines that come out of this. Joe Schmidt versus Farrell. You know, you've got former Ireland versus New Ireland. You've got the players that come through and who gets selected. You've got, is there going to be a Welshman involved? You get, who is Australia going to have involved? Who's going to be there? How is Suoli going to step up? My friend, how do you see this series going? With the idea that you play Fiji in 156 days' time as a little warm-up. You then host the first game in Brisbane, second game in Melbourne, and then the final game in Sydney. How do you see this game series going?
Look, obviously 3-0 to the Wallabies. You know, just straight up 3-0. No, it's look. What I saw last year from Wallabies was significant improvement under Schmidt compared to what we had under
Who shall not be named.
Yes, he should not be named. And what I loved is the real buy-in we saw from players and the respect that Schmidt also showed to his players. You know, like Eddie Jones was pretty cavalier in his selections and things like that, and was not, you know, to be honest, the most respectful of some of the veteran players. And that led to a loss of leadership. And what we've seen from the only positive to have come out of that is it really forced a transition, and we found the new Wallabies long-term captain. I feel in Harry Wilson, that his combination with Fraser McWright um, is lightning in a bottle, and that frees up Valentini to play his more natural six as well. Yeah, look, the other part I think about this is, you know, Schmidt and Farrell obviously know each other very well, so they're going to know what each other are going to be trying to do. Suoli will have had a full season in Super Rugby, so he'll be has had this full off season for training as well. Max Jorgensen will also have had more experience under his belt. Yeah, I think this could really come down to the health of the Wallabies team. Because British and Irish Lions have got obviously four nations to pick from, so an injury hero there that could pick up a quality replacement. Um, uh, you know, whereas Australia is very much dependent on a lot of our first line stock being healthy. So I think it'll come down to that, and particularly front row. As I said at the top of the show, rugby is one in the front row. It's one of the scrums, one of the breakdowns in the front row, and in your and forwards more broadly, but specifically in the front row. Look, Angus Bell is a superstar, and I feel as he goes, so do the Wallabies, in a way. Um, I don't think it's far fetched to suggest a Wallabies win in this series. It'd be difficult. It'd be you know, a huge turnaround from the woes of 2 years ago. But I think they've got the right coach for it. I think they've got the right players for it, and you know they've got incredible motivation for it. So yeah, you know, it'll be, let's say, 2-1 Wallabies.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I'm going to struggle to pick the Wallabies, and for the reasons that you said, just the
Mm.
depth that the British and Irish Lions have, the state that Australian rugby has been in. Again, we saw an improvement last year, but where I sit right now, I go, it would it would be something incredible. And I think if you take one, you might take the first game and catch the British and Irish Lions team
Mm.
trying to gel a little bit. But I see a team led by Finn Russell with, you know, a Tojay in there. You go just some of the players that you could sit there and name and just put into this team, and I go, that's a scary looking British and Irish Lions team.
Yeah.
And I go, look, I think you've said it as well. There's players that you start to name in the Wallabies team, and you go, they're scary. Fraser McWright,
Mm.
scary what he can do at the breakdown. Suoli'i, scary with his athleticism. Bell, scary as a prop. And I go, you are starting to get there in the team that they select, and I imagine they're going to get Skelton involved for this, and I imagine he'll want to be involved with this. I think that comes right as their season wrapping up over in France, so they'll have that like kind of 2 month off,
Mm.
and I imagine this is one thing he'll be targeting to be involved in. I go, shit, you've got the firepower, as you said. The health is going to be an issue. Who's actually available? Availability is
Yeah.
the best ability, as they say. I see it 2-1 to the British and Irish Lions, and I see you taking the first one, and then them taking the second, and then that just us having an absolute cream pie as we get ready for the Sydney game, because I just go, holy
Yeah.
shit! Like 1-1. That's what dreams are made of. Like we're talking Game 7 of an NBA Finals. So we're talking like this level of excitement going into that one. And yeah, I could just imagine a Finn Russell drop goal to win it, and being very Johnny Wilkinson like, and just something like that playing as the Titanic music sounds, and like that's what I see happening. But
Mm.
I could also see a capitulation from the Wallabies and it being no free. But I'm hoping that it's a close series, and that I've gone with my head again, and I think British and Irish Lions take it 2-1. I just see too much talent in the numbers coming through. The Six Nations will be really interesting, because you're going to see the team come through the Six Nations, like who comes through there, who's actually the best players, who's going to start, everything like that. But oh boy, when it gets close, when the teams start getting named, when the squad gets over, when you get those tour games, it's going to be fucking exciting, to say the least. Lastly, to wrap
100%.
us up for our first show back of 2025, we thought, like at the end of the year, we want to look back at the show and go, what, what did we say was going to happen? Did we say were we right? And one thing I always like to do is the number one team come by the end of the year, a player of the year who we think is going to win player of the year, and maybe a new superstar in world rugby. Similar to, there's a breakthrough player of the year, Wallace Atiti was last year, but someone else we've got on our list that maybe make a breakthrough, make a debut for someone, or actually just take that step up. For my number one team come end of the year, look, because it's a British and Irish Lions series, there's obviously going to be a lot of focus on that end of season, those European, those Northern Hemisphere teams don't have the same prep that they kind of normally go into those Northern tours. So I think this is a two-horse race, because I think the All Blacks are going to win all their end-of-year tour and do a Grand Slam this year. I believe that. So I think South Africa are also going to win all their end-of-year tours. And again, I'm jumping in early and just saying I feel this way. I feel we're sparking a vibe of this is going to be going into 2026, a rivalry upon ends. And I know there's talks of a tour if we get a tour in 2026. I think it's all going to build to that. So I see whoever wins the rugby championship between New Zealand and South Africa, I see them finishing as top team,
Yeah.
even with a loss or also in there, maybe on the end of your tour. Say Ireland do beat New Zealand. I think that's how I see it happening. So I see New Zealand 1, because I've picked New Zealand to win the rugby championship, South Africa 2, but boy, it'll be either two of those teams, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's the exact line of reasoning I had, is whoever wins the rugby championship wins number one team of the year. So, yeah, I picked New Zealand to win the rugby championship as well. So probably New Zealand.
Player of the year for me, I go, normally it goes to someone in that team, like who's led their team to be number one team in the year, has had a really good season. It's only based on international games. I go, there is though this world and this apparent aura that we could see which is the British and Irish Lions series, and something
Yeah.
happening from that series that elevates a player, because that is the highlight of our game. I count it as like a state of origin-esque moment for rugby, where it's like all eyes are actually on this series. Someone from that team could supersede. Um, as I picked Scotland to win the Six Nations, I don't think someone from France gets it. I don't think someone from Ireland gets it. I look at Finn Russell. Can he do what he needs to take Scotland to that next level? He's a player that I kind of bracket. I then go, okay, well, I've picked the Rugby Championship teams and the Rugby Championship winners to be New Zealand. So I'm thinking it's going to be a New Zealander, but I'm going to put an asterisk there. And the reason I'm going to put an asterisk there, in my opinion, it's going to be dependent on where he plays and what Razor does. I think Beauden Barrett, if he takes that 10 jersey by hold, will become back to his best that he had years ago when he was winning the awards. So I go, if there's someone from the All Blacks that I highlight, it's Beauden Barrett. For South Africa, if South Africa were to finish top, I'm looking at Eben Etzebeth going back up there. I know Peter Steff had another fantastic year and was deserved winner in my opinion. But I see someone like Eben Etzebeth having another fantastic year, elevating his game, elevating his team. As my asterisks, our man, Joey Boy Suoli'i, if he does something special during this Wallabies season, and again leads the Wallabies to a British and Irish Lions Series 1, and let's say he is absolutely unreal in those games, breaking tackles, scoring tries, doing an Israel Folau-esque type season, and again leads to, let's say they win the Rugby Championship, you go, fuck me, there's got to be someone in that Wallabies team that is putting their hand up, and again, say they go on the end of season tour and do it. He, to me, is that level of special that after, as you said, a Super Rugby season under his belt, he could do something and he could go, actually, I am going to be World Player of the Year, and this is how it is going to fold. So I've gone Beauden Barrett. I've bracketed Eben Etzebeth with Joseph Suoli'i.
Yeah, I like your reasoning, and I am of a similar mind in that the British and Irish Lions tour will play a big part in determining who is the player of the year. So I think if Australia wins that series, then you'll see an Australian player win player of the year. Assuming Australia doesn't sort of lose out from there on, they have a decent year. So my pick is Fraser McReight, because I think if there's anyone that's gonna have a crazy moment that elevates the Wallabies to beat the British and Irish Lions, it's gonna be McReight. I do like your reason with Suoli'i, and if he progresses as everyone is expecting him to, if he becomes a dominant fullback for the Wallabies, with similar to Israel Folau's done before, if we're getting same vibes from Suoli'i, then potentially him as well. But McWright seems more logical to my mind.
Yeah, I like that. Again, I was tossing up, I think, if you see series wins and wins happening for the Wallabies, someone there has to step up. McWright's right up there with Suoli'i. Your superstar in the making for 2025, as in who do you think will break through and kind of take the reins of being a superstar?
I hope it's Tane Edmed. I hope, because we saw what he could do in the NPC, and now he's Tane. Now he's got the helm with the Waratahs. He's got an inside track to the starting 10 position for the Wallabies. If because Lolosio hasn't locked that in, right? So if Edmed has a brilliant season for the Waratahs, which he's capable of, and now he's got some health in front of him, and got a great back line, I think it could well be Tane Edmed Tane.
Yeah, I love it. I've got two names bracketed. One is, they're both New Zealanders, obviously, because that's what type of podcast we are. Ollie Mattis, we've talked about him before. He's a flanker who played on the wing in Waikato's run into the finals for the NPC. He's also played for Sevens. I would love for this year to be him. I think he's going to take a couple more years, grow into his body. Ardie Savea did something very similar when he was growing up or coming through, and played Sevens and then slowly grew into that body that is now the man you see, which is a All Black legend. So the name I'm going to chuck on Ollie Mattis because I think the All Blacks are going to be looking at who are we playing at 7, and there's talks around Artie to move to 7, and then Wallace moving back to 8, and then you can have Finau at 6 or something like that, and have just the most destructive loose forward trio in the game. I think Artie still stays at 8, Wallace still stays at 6, and I think Duplessis Karifi's year is this year. He's a little nugget, absolutely built. He's had years of experience to build up to being the All Blacks, was included in the squad. I think he's going to lead the Hurricanes to great things for Super Rugby, and I think this is his year that he solidifies his name as the All Black 7, which therefore, if you wear that jumper, you're pretty much automatically in the conversation as one of the best players in the world. So that's what I see. No Sam Cane, someone like that. I would have put Cam Roigard in this because I think he's only shown glimpses because, again, injury to the Hurricanes and the All Blacks, but I think he's already a superstar in my mind. I see Duplessis Karifi taking that step up. Again, just naming all New Zealanders and 2 Hurricanes. It's like what am I talking about? I'm just talking about my own players and team here. But we wouldn't be any other way. We wouldn't want it any other way. This is the way we do it. But that is our thoughts on the year for 2025. That's where we think this season's going to go. We'll be back routinely throughout your 2025 year to talk about all things rugby. Obviously, first week up for the Six Nations, some massive games, which could decide the tournament if Hughesy believes predictions go as they expected. And then we're going to be right around the corner to Super Rugby. So stay tuned for more stuff for that. But for now, thank you for joining us. I've been Luke. That has been Hughesy. We will see you later. Goodbye.
Peace.